Two Labour MPs, Yun Yang and Abdeslam Mohammed, travelled on a humanitarian mission to the occupied West Bank. They wanted to witness conditions on the ground and had spoken in Parliament about Israel's atrocities and the need to uphold international law. For that, Israel's hardline government branded them agitators spreading hate and promptly put them on the next flight home. And what did Badenoch do? Well, let's have a look.
I think that every country should be able to control its borders. And that's what Israel is doing, as far as I understand. They gave reasons why they didn't believe that those people should come in based on their laws. And it's really important that we respect other countries enforcing their borders. Those Labour MPs, according to the Israelis, were coming in to do something that they were not allowed to do. And so I respect that decision.
And as for what Kemi Badenoch had to say, I'm completely gobsmacked, really. I just wonder about the logic of this. If her argument is that countries should be allowed to make decisions in this way and that we shouldn't criticise, then I suppose the question is, what does she say to China about Ian Duncan Smith, who's banned from travelling to China and is sanctioned by them, or the Russians? You know, this is nonsense. You have to stand up for what's right, Kemi Badenoch, and you should stand in solidarity with other parliamentarians who were just going to Israel and the West Bank to find out what's going on.
Well, there's Badenoch getting told. She just cheered the expulsion, essentially. Kemi basically saying Israel can control its borders, and as if this was some, the same routine customs check and not a blatant attempt to silence dissent. This isn't about border control, obviously. It's political repression. It's apartheid in action. And Badenoch backed it, loud and proud, because it fits her reactionary brand of being a feeble authoritarian abroad and a culture war enthusiast at home. In a democracy, I think we expect our leaders to stand up for our representatives and the rule of law, not to play some PR agent for an authoritarian crackdown. Cog, what do you think? I mean, firstly, I kind of want to get your reactions, actually. What do you make of Badenoch's approach and I think her statement actually in that interview?
When I hear what Kemi Badenoch is saying about Labour MPs, I'm reminded of two things. First of all, that the way that right-wingers view the law is not the same as the way that you and I view the law. Frankly, they just don't see it the same way. The law is not about cause and effect and how do we discourage certain behaviours and encourage other behaviours. The law, like all forms of punitive tools available to them, is used to reinforce hierarchy. That is the purpose, right? It doesn't matter that these MPs haven't done anything that can be described as remotely dangerous to the state of Israel. That's not the point. The point is reinforcing hierarchy. That's it. And I would be really careful if I was Kemi Badenoch about what I was saying, because there are MPs in the Conservative Party who could be subject to the same kind of scrutiny. Now, I want to be very clear for people who are just tuning in and don't know my views. I don't agree with what Kemi Badenoch is saying about Mohammed and Yang. But what I'm saying is that this scrutiny could equally be applied to Alicia Kearns, for example, from the Conservatives, who's been very vocal about condemning Israeli war crimes in the West Bank and Gaza. It's only a matter of time before that sort of stuff comes round and starts to bite you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find it interesting that she's almost trying to weaponize a political agenda that's been long asserted in Britain, where it's like, well, we have the right to control our borders. And then she's kind of jumping on the bandwagon when it comes to Israel. And it's like, pick your battles, sis. What do you want to do? Like, what is it that you want to pick? And what I find interesting as well is obviously Israel's approach to this. They claim it's barred the MPs to prevent harm to them and hate speech. But is that actually credible, or is it merely a tactic to silence critics of war crimes? They're not alleged, they are war crimes. And how do you think Britain should respond when our MPs are treated this way? What is the appropriate response?
Well, my question to that would be, what war crimes would it cover? Because ultimately, I think a lot of people are looking at this kind of the wrong way. I think if you want to cover up cover up war crimes or silence dissent, there's so many more efficient ways to do that. You could, if you want, access information coming out of the West Bank. It's not quite like Gaza, and these MPs have reasonably reliable information from on the ground from sources who are supportive of the Palestinians. Like, for example, B'Tselem. They could be reaching out to B'Tselem and getting them to do operations on the ground in Gaza and the West Bank. They're reliable sources of information. So it's not about information getting out. It's not about silencing dissent, because this would actually exacerbate dissent. But of course, they can always discredit any information that comes out of the West Bank, but that's going to be the case regardless of whether you let these MPs in or not. So what is it about? I think it's about the fact that these are two non-white MPs. Now, I don't mean that in a broad sense of like, oh, well, Israel's just racist, so they're cutting people off. I mean that Israel does not trust the IDF not to simply gun down non-white people in the West Bank. I think that is a genuinely, I think that might be the reason that they haven't allowed these MPs to enter the West Bank, and they certainly wouldn't allow them to enter Gaza, because you've got to remember the IDF has even been firing at Israelis, like Israelis who are very clearly Jewish, like very clearly. I believe they fired at some of their hostages thinking that they were Palestinians. Like, the IDF is absolutely not to be trusted, and I don't think that the Israelis even trust the IDF with the lives of these MPs. I think that is part of the story here. Sorry, that was a long and convoluted
No,
answer.
it wasn't a long and convoluted answer, because it was one I wasn't actually quite expecting. It wasn't one I thought about or entertained, and I think you're absolutely right that is probably what it is. The IDF cannot be trusted. The IDF cannot trust anything that's around them. So, of course, now you're going to see someone that doesn't look like them conventionally and think that they are the enemy. And what I find interesting as well, I think at the moment, is this going to then stop, the UK government selling arms to Israel? Probably not. They don't respect British people, evidently, because they don't deem that those that went over, the two Labour MPs, to even have been British at all. So I don't, like you said, I don't think it's about silencing dissent. I think it's silencing people that they don't deem worthy of having any sort of voice in the first place. I kind of want to go into Lammy a little bit. I love talking about Lammy, but I do find Lammy quite shocking. I don't love talking about Lammy because I like Lammy. I think he's slimy. But what I find is Lammy's shocking approach to this. I mean, I think he thinks he says the right things, but I feel like I can see right through this guy. Like, yeah, sure, pat on the back, Lammy, you condemned the deportations, you've called it unacceptable, and you said that it's deeply concerning. And yeah, absolutely, I think that's what we're all thinking. But where was this energy before, when Palestinians were being bombed by the thousand, when the UK literally abstained at the UN on a ceasefire? Lammy's record, I think he's proving to be one of calculated outrage, loud when British MPs are insulted, but silent when Palestinians are being slaughtered. Should you not keep the same energy up when both of these things are happening at the same time?
Of course you should. But there's another point here, and that's that it doesn't help you to kowtow to Israel. Like, it's not going to help you. Joe Biden tried it. He said, well, I'm going to, for 2 years, did everything that Israel wanted. Was like, yeah, okay, if you cross my red line, I'll just keep moving the red line, and then Netanyahu, you get you get a pass. No matter what you do, you get a pass. Israel has a right to defend itself. All of that stuff. And what happened come election 2024? Donald Trump and Netanyahu were having meetings together, because Netanyahu will always stab you in the back. And I think this is the kind of interesting relationship that you have between Israel and the sort of liberal political elite, if you want to call them that. You can, if you want, you can go in, you can bend over backwards to accommodate them, but it's not going to do you any good. I would instead be looking at cutting off arms sales, cutting off flights from RAF Akrotiri that are doing reconnaissance flights from Cyprus to aid in Israel's genocide. I would be looking at kicking Israel out of the Horizon program, because at the moment, Israel has just unexpectedly been hit with a 17% tariff. And of course, part of the big export from Israel. Oh, by the way, I think it is hilarious that Iran got hit with less tariff than Israel did. So Donald Trump even managed, in his clumsiness, to boot his supposed strongest ally in the Middle East harder than he managed to boot Iran. But of course, a lot of Israel's export is science and technology. And if you get Israel kicked out of the EU Horizon program, if you stop tech cooperation, they've been hit with a 17% tariff from their supposed closest ally and who they were banking everything on. And by the way, that ally has also given up all of their soft power. Israel is in quite a uniquely vulnerable position to be hit in the tech sector right now. And they should do that not only because of that, but also because Israel has had a bunch of bad news stories come out about it. There were 10 British Israelis serving in the IDF who are being charged with war crimes. And at the same time, 15 medics were found in a mass grave, having been summarily executed by the IDF. And the IDF lied about it, and there's no getting out of that. That is bad publicity. At this time is one of the best times to start giving Israel a kicking. And politicians like Lamy need to turn around and start doing that, because the Starmer supporting Israel without qualification line, it might not even be a case of like, oh, it will make you look bad in the future. It might literally get you put in jail. Like, that is the stakes they are playing with here. But yeah, I've said too much.
No, you haven't. You can never say too much. I think everything you're saying is of value, and I really appreciate it. But what I find interesting is you'd said that this was going to be bad publicity for Israel. At this point, I don't know if Israel care if they have bad publicity. They've done things, egregious things, heinous things, barbaric things with their full chest and been like, "Oh, yep, sorry." Not even sorry, just oops, yeah, that happened, and then kind of brush it under the carpet. With the things that have happened recently, where they're trying to charge was it 15 British individuals with war crimes, like, that's a concerning thing. But I don't think that they're going to step back on that. And I think what we can do, our approach, particularly in our government, is to stop soft pedaling when it comes to these things. I think we're soft pedaling a little bit too much. We're not taking a hard enough stance when it comes to a genocide. And I find Lamy's approach at the moment, and many people like Lamy who are in Parliament, that their outrage is too little, too late. This should have happened a long time ago. Supporting arms sales should have happened a long time ago, but we're still stuck in this horrific cycle of enabling this genocide to flourish in the way that it's flourishing. We thought, and I remember doing the show, I think it was this couple months ago, January, when the ceasefire got called, and then people were, cautiously optimistic. And I was like, I'm not so optimistic. I don't think that Israel has a track record of actually adhering to any of these things. I don't trust them. I don't trust, it's not that I don't trust Israelis, I don't trust the Zionists. I don't trust people that want to support apartheid. And I think I need to be careful with what I say, but that is what I'm not supporting. I think we need to really take a really, really hard stance when it comes to this. No more soft peddling.
Have you ever had a friend who is in a, not an actual like romantic relationship, but just is friends with somebody who displays really toxic, narcissistic behaviors, potentially abusive, and because it doesn't affect them personally, they don't say anything. They don't step up. They don't, that they don't say anything to that person. And inevitably what happens is that person ends up with those behaviors being turned on them. And I think that's going to be true of every ally that Israel collects. You can, if you like, you can leave it. You can, you can turn a blind eye to Israel's war crimes. You can, you can go out of your way to defend them if you like. But those behaviors are going to be turned on you in little ways, whether it's like being rude to your diplomats or whatever, or recording Emily Thornberry, in ways that made her go, I don't like that, or David Lammy going like, well, you shouldn't be rude to our MPs, as though the problem was like rudeness and not the brutal murder of Palestinians. But if you do that, you're going to have the behaviors turned on you. It's a matter of time, and that's true in so many ways. The saying was, in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians, and it is so true.
Support independent media, support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.